Hi, Tama. Welcome to the Open Door Sisterhood.
Hello, thank you for having me.
We are so happy to have you. And let's just start by saying Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to you.
Oh, thank you. Why don't you tell us where you'll be celebrating Christmas this year and who you'll be celebrating with?
So, we are a little bit all over the place with our family. We have, of course, our own core family traditions here at home. We ventured to extended family just a few miles away, my husband's family across town, my dad's family in West Tennessee. So, we travel a little bit at Christmas.
Yeah. Who are you with? How many kids do you have? And where is home? Where is your hub?
So I am just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. My husband and I, Jeff, have two kids. They are both in college now, which is incredibly hard to believe. So I'm really a little extra excited this year because they get to come home. So it'll be nice to get that in-person hugs instead of over the phone.
Hmm.
Well, I always think it's interesting talking to parents who have older kids because now everybody's looking back a little bit on what was really important around the holidays, what was special, and what do my kids actually remember and value from growing up? I mean, of all the things we did, because we can feel like a three-ring circus and we're just like, doing all the things and juggling all the balls. And yet sometimes we're surprised by what actually mattered to them and what was important to them. So I'm wondering if you even have any thoughts about that or insight now that you're looking back.
That was a question we actually started asking our kids a few years ago because Christmas can get overwhelming when you're trying to make it everyone's dream Christmas. And isn't that what we moms do? We kind of try to make everybody's dreams come true. Um, and I don't know what prompted it, but we decided to sit down and ask, what actually is your dream Christmas? And we were able to eliminate some things because for my son, he loves to go see the Christmas lights. There's a couple of displays that are really nice around town. That makes Christmas for him. Um, my daughter loves the fact that her dad cooks Christmas morning breakfast. So some of the things that I really rushed and struggled to do, we were able to let go of. It's that together time. Um, Reading a Christmas story with their cousins. They take turns with that every year around their grandparents' tree. It was those things that mattered. And that was really eye-opening for me.
That's really sweet. Tell me more about reading the Christmas story around the grandparents' tree. What does that look like?
So my husband's parents, before we open gifts, before we do anything, we stop and take time to read the Christmas story. And when they were little bitty, the grandparents would read it. And now that they've gotten older, they each take turns, and we have three sets of siblings. And so each year, each set takes a turn. So for example, my daughter would read the first half of the Christmas story and my son would read the next half. And then it would rotate to another set of cousins, but they do that all gathered around the tree at their grandparents' feet, which is a little more crowded these days now that they're taller and not quite so tiny, but it's just a wonderful moment of family and connection and inviting God into the celebration first thing. And it's just very special.
Yeah, because Christmas, the reason it's such a marker, I think, in our calendar year is because it brings in traditions that we don't do all year round.
Mm,
But something, I mean, that probably doesn't take very long to do
no.
that. And so something that's small that as far as time goes, and it takes zero prep, all you have to do is open your Bible. So it it doesn't have to be a big elaborate production in order for it to imprint on our hearts and minds, and not just our kids but ours as well. I think that's a great reminder.
And I've been so surprised that my kids don't really care about the things that are the elaborate productions. Um, it's the simple things that they have really treasured and remembered. Um, they want the stockings hung on the mantle, but they don't really care about the rest. There's like I said before, it's really helped me let go of a lot of the extra that doesn't have to be done and focus on what we really value.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just thinking as we were praying before we hit record that I really do love talking about Christmas. But there was a time, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, when I did not love Christmas. And so I was asking myself, I mean, I was trying to pray. I'll confess, my mind was wandering a little. Like, why now do I feel a lot less stress around the Christmas season? And I think it is because I've done some of that question asking and have decided there's a lot of extra that I really tried to stuff into our schedule, into our budget, into our attention. And now I can just focus on kind of the big things. And maybe that's the nature of having older kids. But I think it's more than that. I think it's really the mom's mindset of what am I doing to make Christmas special? And what really is required of me to make this memorable? And it really doesn't have to be all of these other things. And outsourcing, because like my mom does a tradition with my kids, and that adds to their Christmas memories without me having to do any work. And now that my kids are older, they want to make cookies. I'm like, great, go make your cookies. I don't have to. So that, I guess, is by the very nature of having older kids rather than younger kids. They're more independent in doing some things.
Absolutely. And I also think, and maybe that's just because we've been in this mom business a little bit longer. And that's part of why I wanted to write Simply Christmas, is to speak to my younger self and to those who are in that boat, is take some time. And sometimes for younger moms with the littles, that means, hiding in the shower for 5 minutes longer. But it's take some time and figure out what it is you want to have at the end of this season.
Mhm.
Figure out what it was from the past that you really remember. And then let's have some intentionality about how we go into this season. Then we can make sure that we're incorporating those things that really matter to us. And the other things we can set aside, we can delegate, we can simplify. Uh, it doesn't have to be craziness. I mean, there's a little bit of chaos that's just inherent in Christmas because, it's Christmas, but it doesn't have to make us unhappy.
Mm. Wow. Isn't
And
that
it,
true?
and it doesn't
The
have
goal
to
of Christmas is not to make us unhappy. Let's just all
exactly.
remember that in the second week of December here.
Well, talk to us a little bit about food and gifts and just what are some of your strategies? Because like you said, I mean, we do want to make things special and different than normal because that's what makes Christmas special. And so it's set apart. So give us just some maybe ideas and thoughts about how we can do that in a way that sure may have a little bit of stress because we are the ones preparing, but ultimately at the end of the day, it really creates something that is manageable for us and special for everyone else.
So food, for example, at Thanksgiving, I cook all the things. But at Christmas, we have kind of isolated a few recipes. There's a fudge I make every year that's great for gift giving that takes 5 minutes. There are, I make sausage balls, but I make those ahead at Thanksgiving and freeze them. And so they're done. So there's a little bit of that planning ahead. There's a little bit of finding recipes that work for you. I'm blessed in that most of the Christmas celebrations I go to are potlucks. Everybody chips in. Nobody's responsible for the whole thing, which makes life much easier. And then our biggest meal as a family, it gets back to that delegation, like you said, Alex. My husband cooks the Christmas breakfast. I do Thanksgiving. He does Christmas breakfast. And frankly, he does it a lot better than me, except for that one year we caught the hash browns on fire. But, we won't talk about that. But that delegation and the key recipes and finding what works for you, I think is key as far as the food goes. Christmas presents. Wow. In some ways it gets easier as the kids get older because there's not as much on their wish list. But in some ways it gets harder because what on earth do you get, a 19-year-old boy for Christmas? So we actually do, and I know some people frown on this, but we do a lot of gift cards. But we try to make it special. So, for example, my son loves the movies. So we'll tuck in a movie gift card, a big popcorn bucket, some candy, and, kind of make a display out of it. But we also try not to really focus on the presents that much. We try to focus on the giving to others. So every year we're out shopping for, we have a local organization that gives toys to needy children. So we're out shopping for that and the kids help. And they're like, okay, when I was 6 years old, what would I have wanted? And we've done that with them ever since they were little bitty. And I think that's helped them cultivate a desire to give to others. But yeah, presents are a challenge. It's just that plan ahead and gift cards.
I do think it's really hard when your child wants something you're not ready to give them. So, and that usually has to do with technology.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the tough dilemmas, because as kids are getting technology in general, culturally earlier and earlier and earlier, but a parent may decide we're just not ready to go there. It's
Mhm.
hard because the child might be disappointed on Christmas if they're not getting that. So I'm wondering actually if either of you have any thoughts for the parent who feels like they're in that position.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because we're having this discussion at our house. So Tama, we have 4 daughters, and our first 2 both got their first cell phones,
Mhm.
smartphones, the Christmas of 6th grade when they entered middle school.
Mhm.
And part of that was because our oldest daughter, she really did have a lot of friends who had cell phones. And part of it was because her friends were, had split parents. So just by necessity, the kids had phones so that they could communicate with both parents. So we did an assessment at that time and said, okay, we'll do a cell phone. Well, then child number 2 did the same thing. Child number 3 is pretty adamant that she is going to get this for Christmas. And my husband is not so sure this is a good idea. And so we are having these very conversations, and we haven't made a decision yet. But I think if she is not going to get it, we are going to tell her before Christmas morning, because we don't want the tears of disappointment to be there on Christmas morning. We'll take that on December 22nd or whatever.
Yeah.
But it will be hard, partly because, yeah, she's going to say it's not fair. And she's right. It's not fair. It's not the same. And we have more information than we did 6 years ago. And so we are going to make decisions based on the information we have now. There's also more options available now. So she has friends that have a smart watch where you can text, but you don't have access to everything on it. You can call. And so it has kind of some of those cool features, but we are going to see. I think it's hard. And we haven't been a big gaming family, but I know like for often video games are part of that discussion. But I would say if you know your child's not going to get it and it's the one thing they're waiting, hoping to get, and there's a reason, and it could be something like technology where you're not ready, but it also could be cost for parents, that sometimes a child wants something that is really out of budget. Or our neighbor a couple of years ago asked for a unicorn. Like she really believed she was going to get a unicorn. So there's also the element of this, I may not be able to produce this just because, but to have those hard conversations to kind of soften the blow on Christmas morning might be helpful. She's younger.
Yeah.
She's not a teenager. She truly believed Santa could bring a unicorn. So depending on where your kids are, it may depend on what kind of disappointment they're going to be facing.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in conversations with our kids. Um, I heard someone say years ago when my kids were little, that you should be able to just say, because I told you so. Um, and I guess there are moments when that is necessary, but by and large, I disagree with that. I want kids to see my reasoning because I want them to learn how things are reasoned out. And so, like with technology, and like I said, my kids are in college, so the conversations are probably a little harder right now because it's so much more prevalent, even in just the last few years. But yeah, we had those conversations about, you can play a game on my phone, but we're not doing this until I think my daughter got hers in seventh grade and my son in sixth grade. It was when they started going places where we didn't, um, like basketball practice and youth group, because we wanted them to be able to get in touch with us. Plans change, but just having that conversation about here's why we're doing this and here's why we're not. And that goes for the video games, the money. And I see, especially at Christmas time, parents trying to fulfill all these materialistic dreams for their kids. And we miss out on the real reason for Christmas sometimes doing that. But we also set our kids up, I think, with this standard of what gifts and Christmas should be, sometimes to the detriment of the family. Um, Maybe it's because I'm married to an accountant, but we have a budget for things and we're very open and honest with our kids, especially as they got older. This is what your budget is. I see that you want this for Christmas. Maybe we could put this toward it and then you use some of your own money to buy the rest if this doesn't fit in your budget. But as I said, I'm just a big fan of having conversations with our kids.
I really appreciate that idea that you just shared. Actually, I haven't ever heard someone say it quite like that, but I like just that collaborative approach. But then also you're like, hey, this is what we have to give. And we're so excited to give it to you, but it's not enough for the $2,000, or what, what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, I don't know. I think kids have these like grandiose ideas sometimes, not obviously I'm exaggerating, but, and, that gives them partnership in that so that you're both coming at it as a team. And I really, instead of like me as a parent versus you as a child, and they want that, and I'm not going to give that for whatever reason. It's more like, hey, let's do a team approach. And so that's really helpful. Thanks for that idea. I think that's a really good one.
I want my kids, I think we all want our kids, and I'm seeing it now as they go off to college, to be able to make these decisions on their own. And I'm watching my daughter try to budget. She has her own little apartment and try to budget this. It's like, okay, I can't do this because I need this. And those don't happen automatically. Those kinds of decisions, that starts when they're little bitty, and with these conversations.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's maybe turn back to meals just a little bit, because that is such an important and huge part of the holidays. I just really want to get specific. Do you have some recipes that are, you mentioned your fudge, which I think you said 5-minute fudge. Hey, that sounds pretty good. But like, what are maybe some specific recipes we can even put in our show notes today for our listeners?
Oh, wow. So, so I do the fudge. I'll be happy to send that recipe to you. It's super simple. You actually do it in the microwave. You're using chocolate chips, butter, and sweetened condensed milk. And it turns out just so wonderful every time. And it's great just to have for parties, but I also love to just tuck it in a little tin for a gift, a pre-Christmas tin with a bow popped on top. makes a nice little teacher gift or whatever you need. Um, I am kind of famous through the family for my sausage balls. I don't know if that's a Southern thing or
I was so curious when you said sausage ball. I was like, what in the world is a sausage ball? Do tell. I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest and we don't do sausage balls that
okay.
I know of.
Oh, these are so good. So yeah, so it's sausage, Bisquick, and cheese, and you mix it all together, roll it into a ball, and bake it. And it comes out. It tastes kind of like a sausage cheese biscuit, but it's in this nice little ball that you just pop into your mouth. So
So
yeah,
you do them in little mini. You do little mini ones on. Okay, so
yes.
it's not a large ball.
Oh no.
It's like a toothpick. You put a toothpick in it,
Exactly, like a
one bite
small
size.
meatball. Yeah, not yeah, probably about the size of like those little rubber bouncy balls is about what I
Yeah.
try to make them. So yeah, no, not this giant sausage ball.
I'm like, wow, okay. No, the
Uh,
Bisquick. Alex, are you tracking on the sausage balls?
Well, I could picture when she
Yeah.
said it, I
But
could
you
picture
don't like it's not a thing.
it's not a thing, but it's going to be. I mean,
Yeah.
if you
Why
give us
not?
the recipe, Tama,
oh,
that is something
absolutely.
I could make and my family would like.
Mhm.
Two prerequisites right there. And it sounds pretty simple.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so simple. It's a
Mhm.
little bit of work to mix everything together, but if you have a stand mixer or a food
Mhm.
processor, oh, I am in love with that. That makes life so much easier.
Okay. The
Okay, well,
sausage
this,
ball.
yeah, sausage balls. Okay, any others?
So those are the two things that I make most often. Like I said, it at Christmas time we divide and conquer around our house, around our family as a whole. Actually, trying to think what else. We also do a spinach artichoke dip that's really simple and easy and gooey and warm and yummy. So yeah, I'll try to send that one over to you too. But yeah, we usually divide and conquer um, for the holidays. It just makes things easier.
Yeah, and everyone can bring their special whatever it is, which I think is great. And
They're
that's
sausage balls.
yeah.
And I like that you said at the beginning, at Thanksgiving, I cook all the things
I do.
because Thanksgiving is about the food, right? It's
Yes.
the food. And Christmas is about the food and the gifts and the decorations and the concerts and the parties. And so to right size maybe the food expectations is helpful and to remember, no, I did that at Thanksgiving. That's okay. I cooked all the stuff. If you're someone who needs that freedom and that permission. Now, some of us like to do all of the cooking, but if you're trying to streamline a little, to remember you did cook a whole bunch of things just a few weeks ago. It's okay.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be one way or the other. That's something it took me a long time as a mom to figure out. We can make it our own. If we want to do the big meal at Christmas and Thanksgiving, that's perfectly fine. If we want to streamline, um, or our big meal at Christmas is the Christmas morning breakfast that my husband fixes.
Mhm.
It's country ham and biscuits and gravy and all those wonderful Southern foods. So,
Oh my gosh, I'm loving all the Southern, that's just the Southern flavor in this interview. It's so great. My kids would die if I broke out biscuits and gravy.
oh, see, now mine would die if I didn't. So it's interesting how different the food culture is in different parts of the country. So what do you do for Christmas morning? Do y'all have a big breakfast or a big dinner or?
Yeah, we do. We do. And we do like homemade cinnamon rolls and, but I do like food at Christmas. Actually, I like Christmas food way better than Thanksgiving food. For some reason, I just don't like Thanksgiving food very much. So I'm all about the Christmas food, but I like to cook. So that's part of it, So, but I would say the Christmas breakfast is less important than the Christmas dinner, which is, beef tenderloin. So that's really fun.
That
Yeah.
sounds amazing.
Yeah, I do a Christmas brunch, which is pretty much the same as the Easter brunch. It's just in December, like all the same things. And then we usually go to my mother-in-law's house for Christmas dinner, and my brother-in-law makes the beef tenderloin. So we all bring a side, and that's divide and conquer. She buys it, she buys the meat, and he prepares it. And it's
Oh,
a
that's nice.
yeah,
That's really
way
nice.
that we all divide. So food, and it is interesting because now my kids believe that you have to have certain things on Christmas to
Mhm.
as far as food. Like, but we always have this. And I'm fine with that. I'm
Mhm.
very, very fine with that because I'm in decision overload most of the time, but at Christmas especially. And if I know what I'm making, I don't have to make any decisions. I just make the shopping list and go into autopilot. And I like that. I will say
Yeah.
to parents of younger kids, it's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay if you have the same thing every year
Mhm. Oh,
because
yeah.
it
Less
adds to the
decisions.
marker, but it also in some ways simplifies, even if it's more elaborate food than you would normally make, you know what it is. You don't have to flip through the cookbooks and choose something.
Yeah. And we're big on fondue, which is Christmas Eve every year. And I know you mentioned fondue. So if you have any good fondue, different, I know everyone does kind of different fondues. We do the classic Swiss, but it'd be fun if you have any of those to send those over too.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Tama.
Oh no, I was gonna say we do chocolate fondue on New Year's Eve. Um,
Cute.
that started when the kids were little and they wanted to watch Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but it was the new version. And I was like, I don't think y'all are ready for that yet. So we watched the old version and they did the to make it special and take the sting out of not getting to do the new one. We did chocolate fondue. And so that's just kind of become a tradition now that we do that on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I fondue anytime is just my pick. Just let's do fondue all the time.
Well,
In
and
any
you just
form.
made a great point, Tama, that saying no to something can actually morph into a new fun tradition.
Mhm.
So saying no to the movie meant you had to think of something that you could do. And then all of a sudden it's what you do every year.
Mhm.
So we
Yeah,
just
that's a
never
great
know
point.
how our
Mhm.
no might lead to an unexpected yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
innovation. Narrowing margins produce innovation. We say that all the time on the sisterhood. I love that. What about gifts? I mean, you said the popcorn with the, gift card, like the bucket. It's so cute. But do you have any other creative ideas that people could employ for gifts?
Our family, is kind of unique, I guess. We actually make out lists for each other to shop from, and that makes it really easy. But for those that you're still kind of stuck for, I love giving books. Probably because I'm a writer, but also a reader. And tailoring that book to the person's personality. I have a friend who loves business books. I have another friend who loves mysteries. So I try to stay on top of that, what they've read, and then be able to sneak something new in at Christmas time. And then I like to build the gift around the book. So for my friend who loves business, I'm tucking in, a gift card for coffee. I'm tucking in, a blanket to curl up with when she reads the book. For my 6-year-old niece who loves science, I'm giving her that science book and a science kit that she can actually do experiments with. Um, I like finding a key piece, whether it's a book or a gift card or, maybe a food item, and then building around it sort of an experience.
Yeah, I like that as a concept. I think people can go, yeah, that makes sense. Like I can think about what does that person love? And then you find that one key item and then just build a couple other little things around it. That's really fun.
It sounds like you're very into presentation.
Yeah.
Too, like the basket or the bucket or where the main thing is there, but you add some added fun elements to it.
I do. I love the presentation and I love making the big fancy bows. I guess that's the one thing about Christmas that I don't simplify. I really like doing that. But that
Do you
makes
have
me
any tips on containers, like where people can get them or how you do those?
so I find a lot of containers at Hobby Lobby. I also find some at Dollar Tree. Just the simple little wire baskets that they have a lot of times this time of year. The Target dollar spot aisle, I think they call it. I don't like to spend a lot of money on the container because I want to invest it in the gift. But yeah, just any of those little inexpensive places where you can find something to stuff in, and then finish it off with a pretty wired bow. And my grandmother was a florist, so I learned how to make those wired bows a few years ago. And that on top, it just kind of makes the whole presentation.
Yeah, that's so fun. Well, and you can even thrift store baskets because it doesn't matter if they're tattered a little bit. If you put a cute tea towel or even just pretty tissue paper in there, it all looks great. So you can make it look really good regardless, or spray paint it. I mean, I'm a big spray painter, and you can spray paint
It's the
anything.
solution.
It's always the solution. I love spray paint. Well, Tama, as we're just coming to the end of our interview, what would you say, maybe what are some of your words of encouragement for women as they are striving to be intentional and also to kind of hold on to peace in their hearts as they're moving through the season?
So yeah, that holding on to peace is tough because at Christmas, it seems like everything is coming at you from all directions, from school things to family things to cooking things to gift things to Christmas card things to decorating things. It's just coming at you from all directions. And we can't just kind of hide away until January. I think the key is to figure out a way to carry that peace within you so that when you step into the chaos, you still have it. And that comes when you start with God, I believe. Just filling our minds first thing in the morning for me is key. Whether I have time for just a verse or whether I have time for a whole chapter or an in-depth Bible study, that for me is essential. There are days when I think I'm too busy and I'll skip it and I'll get till about 2:00 and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like the worst day ever. And I realize I didn't arm myself. I didn't put on that shield of his word. And as moms, it's easy to prioritize everything else, but we really need to prioritize that. The other thing I would recommend is sitting down at the beginning of the season before the chaos starts and asking yourself 3 questions. What is it about Christmas that makes me smile? What is it that makes my loved ones smile? Because even if it's not making me personally smile, seeing my husband and my kids happy, that makes me happy. And then above all, what is it that makes God smile, that honors him? And if we go forward and approach every decision, every event with those 3 things in mind, I think it will really help guide our yeses and nos, help us be intentional about what we put into our lives. And yes, give us that sense of peace and purpose as we trudge through the holiday season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we agree. We think that the key to a peaceful Christmas is to remember why we're celebrating in the first place. Exactly. And that just like your kids around the Christmas tree reading the Christmas story, I think going back to the original reason why we celebrate helps us remember, even in hard circumstances, especially in hard circumstances, that God loves us and came. And that is a good thing to celebrate. It's a really wonderful thing to celebrate. Tama, you have a couple of books, one for moms and one for kids about Christmas that can help us get in the right spirit. Can you tell us about both of those?
Yes. So the newest book is Simply Christmas. It's 31 devotions for mom. They are super quick. I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 minutes to read one, but it pulls us back to that real reason of why we're celebrating Christmas. Along with each of those devotions, there are kind of tips and tricks to maybe simplify and encourage you to ponder what it is you really want out of the season. I tried to make it easy. I tried to make it fun, but I also tried to make it connected to God, because, oh my goodness, y'all, he came down from heaven to save us. And I just cannot get over the wonder of that. And so I hope that Simply Christmas helps moms reconnect with that truth. The other book came out last year. Yes, last year, I believe. COVID messed with my brain. I lost it here somewhere. But it's called Christmas is Coming. It's a board book for your littles, and it talks about the fact that Jesus came to earth, but it begins with the fact that God planned this before he created the earth. Before we messed up in the garden, he already had a plan to save us. And it carries littles all the way through in a sweet kind of bouncing rhythm that they like to listen to. And the illustrator just did an amazing job with the pictures. So even though they're not related, I think they're both great resources for Christmas.
Well, and that would be fun to give a mom as like a bundle. If we're talking bundling, doing that would be fun, those two together. Well, I'm going to be thinking about you, Tama, as I am whipping up my sausage balls this year.
There you go.
So, I'll be like high-fiving you across the miles when I'm doing the sausage balls in the KitchenAid. Well, have a Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me, and Merry Christmas to you both.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.